All right, welcome back to SiteTech Intermountain, Siteworks training videos. I got another video that I want to do right now on measuring stockpiles. I've got a couple different piles out here. I got a big one right here, kind of a mess. I've got another one right here that was a little bit more of a topsoil pile at one point. It's kind of a mixture. This is a perfect stockpile to have to shoot with your data collector. If you had to shoot that one over there, it'd be a mess. You'd have to do all the ups and downs to get a good number off of it. That's why drones are so popular now. The drones are popular because you can get like 1,000,000 points, 2,000,000 points, point cloud. You can get a really good number. But I want to show you how to use your Siteworks data collector to still be able to get recordings off of stockpiles like this one. Um, a lot of times when you use a drone, you got to actually get out, fly it, depending on the weather, all the etc. And you also have to process it. I want to show you how to just use your data collector and just go do it real quick. The more shots to take, the better. But we're going to go ahead and start up Siteworks and hit this stockpile. And I'll show you a couple different ways to run it in Kogo at the very end. Because this one has a relatively flat floor on it. So you can do measured to an elevation if it's on a hillside, or just let your bottom volume boundary become the boundary for the bottom. So let's go ahead and measure it. Okay, so what I'm going to do on my Siteworks program right here is I'm going to go make a new work order. I always tell people it's a good practice to go and create a new work order. We'll call this the topsoil pile. It doesn't hurt to also put the date on here, so we'll put 6/14/23 just so I know. I know stockpiles are constantly changing, so I mean if you do in one day, even in an hour, it could change. But I'm not going to run design in my background, but I will show you how we could run it against a design. So actually, we'll go ahead and load the design just so you can see where where I am in conjunction to the pile and the design right here. So right here, we're right in the middle of where this big pop-up building is going to go. So when we run the report at the bottom, or at the end, excuse me, we can run it, like I said, against a known elevation, or let it run the volume boundary based on my boundary as the floor. But if I needed to know how much this stockpile needed to go, plus down to finished grade or subgrade, I'll show you how to run that also. So right off the bat, roller stuck in the mud under the guy standing there, which is the measure type. We're going to go to the new line tab, and I'm going to call this the base because I'm going to create my volume boundary. So line type, volume boundary for the bottom. Going to go ahead and start, and we'll just go ahead and shoot all the way around, and you want to start right at the very bottom. So if you even want this little bit of material, you got to make sure that your volume boundary encompasses everything that you want to actually shoot out here. So we're going to run it right along the bottom. Got my tilt compensator on so I can go a little bit quicker. And there again, just shoot right along the very bottom of this toe right here. Because what it's going to do is as I shoot the volume boundary here, since this slope is pretty straight, I'm not worried about the little ins and outs. My next one is going to be right along the top as a break line. And it will do a digital string line here and there, and it will just compute straight down. If you did have any concaves in it or big bubbles, like I said, the more shots you take, the better on the report at the very end. And if you see those little blue squares on your screen are black, don't worry about it. So as I come around the corner here, just going to keep shooting the very bottom. Now, where this one has kind of this toe coming out of the bottom, really it's just a judgment call, right? Look and basically find the furthest out point. And I'm just going to come back over here to almost the first place that I took my first shot. And I don't have to actually hit right back at the exact same spot. Once I want to connect those two, I can go ahead and hit the auto close button on the screen. So now that that one's done, what I'm going to do is go back into the measure type, and I'm going to call this the top. Once again, doesn't matter on the name, just to keep them separate. But I'm going to change this now to a break line to shoot everything on the top inside of my volume boundary. Make sure that when you do this, you don't cross outside of your boundary. Let me show you what it looks like. If I take a shot inside and then I cross outside of that volume boundary, I get an error. It says point will not be recorded because it would be create a segment that crossed another surface. So just make sure that you don't cross outside of your volume boundary, but also don't cross any of your own lines on the inside. So What you want to do here is just run right up along the edge, and where you've got kind of a vertical curve here, take a little bit more shots on the vertical curve right at the very top. Once it flattens out at the top, you can take a little bit more distance. I got a little bit of a bubble out here, so I'm going to just take a couple extra shots. The more the better. I am going to run one down the middle, so I'm going to go down this other edge right here, close out kind of the top rim. It is pretty flat straight across on the top, but I'm going to go ahead and take a line right down the middle. Once again, the more the better. Look down at my line, make sure I'm not crossing my outer boundary. I'm going to just come right here to the middle, and then I'm going to take a shot all the way down, a line right down the middle. Once I get right back to the very end here, I don't need to run any more than that. So a good way of closing out the line you're on, if you don't need to auto close it, what I like to do is I like to hit the menu button and then hit measure. That basically cancels you out. The other way to do that is to go back into line type and just start a new line. But at any point, if you hit the enter button, it might just start creating a line. If you go back to measure and then you actually hit the enter button, it'll take you to the menu. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and run the reports a couple different ways. So menu button, top left in Siteworks, go down to Kogo, and there's review and edit data. Now, once again, if you watch my other video, there's a question mark in the top right here that tells you all the different things that are in here. It actually defaults to compute volume, which is the one that you need right here, this cube, this 3D box. All you need to do is select the outer boundary by just tapping it. You don't want to touch and hold it, or it'll do what's called a free click on the screen. Now you can do stockpile, measured to an entered elevation, or measured to design. Let me show you all three different ways. Let's just do a stockpile. I'm not doing a scale factor, an expansion, a shrinkage. I don't know what those numbers are for this. It's been sitting there a while. It's probably a pretty hard pile. We'll go ahead and run it just the way it is. So right there, 790 cubic yards, almost 791 for the area here, assuming that it took my outer boundary, my volume boundary, and stitched all that together, even if it was on a little bit of a slope. So 791 is what I'm going to call it. Let me show you the next one. Let me show you the option of measure to an elevation. If you know the elevation, you can key it in. But if you don't know what it is, which most people wouldn't, but you knew this side of the pile was either the higher side or lower side, but I'm going to say it's the lower side. So you want to make sure that you get a flat floor no matter what. It's still going to use the boundary that I made to make the measurement in, but I can create a flat floor off that. So what I can do is hit this little waffle button to the right side, and I can pick one of my points. So what I'm going to do is pick the point right here on the right side, point number 4 that I did. I'm going to just assume that's my flat floor, and I'm going to say okay. So 4195.412, no expansion, nothing else. I'm going to run that as a flat floor. So 761. So you can see how it changed quite a bit from a 791 to a 761. A little bit less there because I gave it a flat floor instead of assuming, which means that the other side probably was a little bit lower. So just something to be careful of. That's a good option. Like I said, if you're working on a stockpile that's up on a hillside where you know where the boundary is, but you know the flat floor goes up into that. Something to think about. The next one I'm going to show you in this drop-down bar is the measure to design, because I do have a design in the background. It does kind of sit halfway over the flat floor of the building here and some of the sidewalk, all that, et cetera, et cetera. What I can do is I can just say, okay, generally about a foot down from finished grade, I'm going to measure to design, and then offset direction I'm going to put below. And then no scale factor, none of that. And we'll run it against the design and see what we've got. So now we've got 1,042 to pull out. So even more. So just think of my boundary sitting on the design minus a foot. Now I can tell someone, hey, we got to go get rid of that. You know how many trucks to order? We've got to get rid of 1,042, either trucks to order or how much to blend around the job site. So that is the way you do 3 different types of measuring a stockpile. And then once again, let me show you this little clipboard in the top right here. You can give it a report and be like, hey, this is my topsoil pile. Oops. Maybe on the comments we'll just be like the date 6/14/23, and I'll put JL for my initials that I did it if you got multiple surveyors, and then you can hit the picture option right here and actually take a picture of it. So if you needed to have a reference, go ahead and hit record. You got a camera right here on the back of your sevens, TSC sevens also. Let's take a couple of them. You can take up to 3 different pictures. There you go. So now that entire stockpile is snapped and recorded and saved to that. You can put a PDF header on there if you do this a lot of times. Right here at the top right, you can go and get a company logo, whatever. But regardless, you can save that, pick those pictures and that report all snapped together to that work order, and it's saved in your root folder of SES 900 data. So hopefully this helped with stockpile measurements. Just always remember, volume boundary on the outside and either break lines or single surface shots on the inside for your boundary. Kogo, review and edit data, and then make sure you pick what type right here you want to measure to. Stockpile, measure it, elevation, or measure to a design. So hopefully this video helped. Thank you for watching it. Site Tech Intermountain, Siteworks training videos.